Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Git Er Raid. We're heading through Heroic Siege of Orgrimmar, and next up is the heroic version of the Norushen encounter. Ever wanted a heroic fight that was just normal mode, plus more damage and health of the enemy? Well, sadly, after they radically hotfixed this boss in the few weeks following the release of Heroics, this boss is just that. Normal mode, plus more damage. There is still a lot to talk about in terms of optimizing strategy and DPS, but there are zero changes to mechanics post-nerf. Even if you are reading the Dungeon Journal for changes right now, you'll see a lot of references to mechanics giving you bits of corruption. All of that is gone, so recommendations like don't stand in between the little ads and the boss because each one of their casts will give you 5 extra corruption don't apply anymore. Sorry to disappoint, but I guess a problem came up with this fight in that guilds just brute forced it. They ignored going in for the tests and just burned the heck out of the boss. So Blizzard significantly buffed the health of the boss and did away with all of the extra mechanics that added corruption to you. It is still a significant DPS and healing check, don't get me wrong, but there isn't anything new to learn. We did it with 2 tanks and 2 heals in this footage. So, what can we talk about if there are no additional mechanics? Well, let's go over ways to optimize your DPS and healing, mainly as that's the biggest obstacle in the fight. And I guess in considering that, I just realized that there is one small change that is helpful for you in this regard. On 10-man, instead of there only being 2 orbs to click that get people into their tests, there are now 4 orbs, so you can have 4 people testing at the same time. And that goes into the first point on how to optimize your DPS. Basically, send as many DPS as you can stand early on, and get them at 0 corruption, doing full damage to the boss. With 2 healing it, we sent a healer and 2 DPS into the first round of orbs. Even with only 2 DPS in their tests, and spawning ads, that beginning part of the fight was sketchy for that solo healer, so be prepared. With the big ads from their tests pulsing AoE and the normal raid damage, it's a bit tough, but if you can send a healer class that can actually kill the ad in their test on their own, like a Disc Priest, that would be ideal. It gets them out quicker and back to helping your raid not die. Also, when sending 2 or more DPS in at the same time, you can do a couple of things to prevent getting overwhelmed with big ads. You could simply stagger when they enter the tests. So one goes in, and then the second DPS waits 5 seconds, and then heads in as well. Or if they go in at the same time, tell one DPS to not kill their big ad and hold it for later while killing off their small ones. Or even, you can just make sure all of your healers and tanks are not in tests and are ready for the onslaught of ads and the resulting AoE damage. The next point to bring up with respect to optimizing your DPS on this fight is to communicate. It should go without saying, haha, but it's really helpful for just about everyone to communicate with respect to the tests. There are a few things to communicate, such as when you are entering a test, if you just killed your big ad if you're a DPS, and when you are done with the test. This alerts your raid to what they might need to deal with, and as well, if you are rotating people through the tests, whomever is next in line for a test, know it's their turn when someone exits. This kind of communication can mean the difference between a DPS starting their test on time or 10 seconds late, which then results in a 1% wipe. Just do it. Now let's turn to talking about the soaking of corruption orbs after a big ad dies in the normal realm. You want to have a more solid plan for this than you maybe had for normal mode of this encounter. As I recommended in my normal mode guide, you should try to have whatever DPS is about to go into a test to soak the orbs. Thus, let's talk about a few of my raiders as an example. If we are going to send Mr. Shadow Priest in first, and I'm next in line after him to take a test, then I'll soak the orb left behind by the raid killing his big ad when it spawns in the normal realm. Likewise, Mr. Mage is after me in line for tests, so when my big ad dies while I'm doing my test, he'll soak it up and then get ready to do his own test. This works up until you don't have anyone testing at the end. you'll have to soak that last DPS's big ad, and then you'll have to soak more of them as the boss spawns one every 10% after 50% of his health. These should be soaked by tanks until they are at full corruption, and then if desperate, pick your lowest DPS or healer and have them soak it. You really want to try to avoid this, and in fact, completely ignoring the 10% big ad is probably still valid as you finish off the encounter, and thus you probably only need to worry about 5 or 6 orbs that will be soaked by the tanks. If both tanks are clean of corruption after their tests, this should leave that job entirely to them. But obviously it's better to get these soaked quickly, and if a DPS has to soak one to avoid a wipe, might as well do that. So we've talked quite a bit about optimizing DPS, but there is quite a lot of raid damage going out on this whole fight, so we should pay attention to the healers for a spell. You'll see in the footage that we have 4 raid markers placed down in the room. These were merely reference for the raid leader to call out where everyone should generally be while DPSing the boss. This allows you to stack up and efficiently AoE heal. Even just saying to your raid, stack in the healing rain or green circle or pre-circle or whatever is probably sufficient. But it was nice to have these reference points to be able to say, hey, the blind hatred is out and moving this way. Everyone move over to blue square and hang out there for healing. And one more note for healing. It will of course depend on your comp, but if you are trying to plan out raid CDs, the intense phases are when multiple big ads are out, and of course at the end when raid damage is redonkulous. Speaking of raid CDs, Lust is likely best used when all DPS are out of their tests and ready to rock. This ensures that everyone will be doing the most DPS possible to the boss, just in case a DPSer has to pick up a stray orb that a tank can't get to. So, do everything you did on normal mode, just do it better, and you'll get this encounter finished in no time. Thanks for watching, and please comment, like, and or subscribe to the video if you found it helpful, and have a good one!